to the Who Dat Nation. Welcome to the Dome Patrol podcast, your podcast for the New Orleans Saints here on the KB Radio Network. I'm your host, Kevin Reed, and week 2 of the NFL preseason is in the books. And the New Orleans Saints come out victorious against the Los Angeles Chargers by the score of 22-17. All in the midst of a tropical storm. What are the odds? Only the New Orleans Saints would travel to Los Angeles to play a game and it be affected by a tropical storm. Not in New Orleans, but in Los Angeles. It's like, I don't know. It's like, of course it would. Of course, a tropical storm would hit Los Angeles while the Saints are playing. But nonetheless, the Saints did come out victorious in this game. This was a very ugly game to watch. Let me just come out and say it. This was hard to watch. And I sat here in my office watching this game, debating on whether I should watch the rest of this game or start channel surfing. I mean, it was bad. But my commitment to this show is what got me to stick around the entirety. What made it so ugly was the penalties, man. This was so sloppy. I know Dennis Allen was hot. You could, if you was watching the game, you saw that he was just disgusted by these guys and these penalties throughout this game. You know, under normal circumstances, if this was a regular season game that mattered, we would have lost this game. You know, it was that bad. We're going to go over the stats and the numbers of how many it was, but I know for a fact in the first half it was 8. It was about 8 penalties to 1. Ugly game. But there are some takeaways to look at in this game that we're going to go over. As always, it's preseason. You know, you're not really looking for the wins and the losses. You're looking for the matchups. Who won in their individual matchups. And we had a lot of questions going into this game, and some of them were answered. Not too many, due to the fact we didn't have any starters play today, which was good. You know, really didn't need them. They practiced. They had a joint practice with the Chargers throughout the week, so it was really unnecessary to have any of them play in this game. Risking injury or whatever. Speaking of injuries, it was good to come out this game with 0 as far as, unless there were some nicks and bruises, of course, but no major injuries to report coming out of this game. Great to hear. My standouts today for this game versus the Chargers, I got to start with Kendrick Miller. Kendrick Miller is the real deal. I know it's only one game. I know it was only for one half, but he showed me enough to know that no matter what transpires going forward in the next couple of years concerning Alvin Kamara or whatever, I like what I see in Kendrick Miller. No, he is not Alvin Kamara. I'm not going to say, oh, man, we can move on. No, I'm not ready to say that. You know, but I like him. I really do. And it was a shock to see him play. You know, last week he was the only injury to come out of that game in our preseason opener. And so the initial thoughts were he wasn't going to play throughout this preseason. That's why the decision was made to sign Darrell Williams earlier this week. And so Kendrick Miller, he played and played well. I like the way he ran the ball. He runs hard. And the big one, wow, was the catch that he had, I believe in the second quarter. What a catch. I mean, he laid out for it. It was a beautiful catch to match the beautiful throw by Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, that was the best throw of the night for him. Throughout the day, he was And I'm the biggest Jameis Winston apologist, but he did not look comfortable today. I don't know what it was. I mean, he didn't do anything to hurt the Saints as far as turning the ball over, where people like to bring up all the time. He didn't do any of that, but he was holding the ball too long. It just seems like times he was looking for that big play instead of taking the check down, taking the safe bet, and it was frustrating to watch. It really was. It was frustrating at times. Another standout today, which is one of the things I wanted to see improve from last week, was our defensive line. And once again, we didn't have any of our starters in there. Carl Granderson didn't play today. Cam Jordan didn't play today. But we had some actual pressure coming from this second and third string defensive line. Peyton Turner. Peyton Turner looked amazing today. He was getting in the backfield. He even had a sack, a forced fumble. Our first round pick, Breesy, he looked good. Saw him deflect the ball. Saw him generate some pressure. Isaac Forsky, he's improving. You know, last week he didn't do anything, but this week he was back there. It was like he was a beat slow, but he's getting back there. You know, he's moving the quarterback off of his spot, which is great. You know, if you can't get to him, at least get the quarterback to move off his spot, and he was doing that. So he can only get better. Let's not forget, this is his first quote unquote, his second quote unquote NFL game. So I'm not expecting him to go out there and be Michael Parsons. You know, I just want to see some production. But man, I brought up Breesy, but our defensive tackles really looked good. Breesy looked good. Sanders looked great. Malcolm Roach looked great. The defensive line really impressed me. Truly impressed me today. Our tight end, he started off good. Lucas Kroll, he had some nice catches, real nice catches in the first half, and then all of a sudden, he got the case of the droppies. He dropped a couple of passes, and I was like, man, one was a touchdown. So I don't know what the problem was. I don't know what happened at halftime where he changed, because in the first half I was sitting there like, well, it's not looking good for Jimmy Graham. You know, I was really debating on if the Saints are going to cut Jimmy Graham, not to mention his arrest over the weekend, which reports are saying it wasn't anything nefarious on his end. It was some type of medical condition. They said maybe a seizure, something that caused alert to whereas police were called, and he ended up being detained, which is weird to me. If you're having a medical episode and you get arrested, it's like, man, what is going on? Why is he being arrested for that? But whatever the case may be, I think that's going to get cleared up. But as far as on the field, I don't know. I really don't know how that's going to turn out, because I know the Saints not going to keep 5 tight ends on the roster come cut time. So somebody's going to be the odd man out. I don't know who it will be, but it didn't fare too well for Lucas Kroll today. He started off well, but he really went down as the game went on. Another player who I think will not make that 53-man roster, and I'm not cheering nobody's downfall, but bro, you got to show me something here. Brian Edwards. Brian Edwards had a bad game. He had 4 targets today with 0 catches, but he had about 4 penalties. he had, on one drive, I think he was penalized 3 times. It was like, man, one of them, I don't see where he should have been called for holding or pass interference. I think that was a bad call. But at that point, all eyes were on him. So he was going to get those calls. And it was just bad, dumb, stupid mistakes throughout the game. And on top of that, he had about 3 drops along with those penalties. But we'll touch in more with the penalties later. Going back to the positives, I have a couple of more positives before we move on to the stats. Uh, man, Jalen Smith, what a signing. Jalen Smith, it was only 2 plays, but those were 2 big plays. They were third down plays that he broke up. He dropped back in coverage on one of the plays and broke up a pass. He had a big hit on a third down, causing the receiver to be short. I like Jalen Smith. I feel good with that pickup there. And so that was a good addition to the Saints defense. Also, wide receiver Shaq Davis. Man, I didn't realize he was that big. He's a nice big target. And he had a really decent game. I think he was the Saints' leading receiver today. He had a real decent game today. And I'm encouraged by that. Now, the wide receiver room is pretty packed. So there's going to be some cuts there that's going to be unpopular, I think, but he really showed out today. Let's get into our stats. It's not too much to go over in this game. It was an ugly game. Nothing to write home and tell mom about, but Saints did come out victorious nonetheless. Let's start with our individual stats, beginning with passing. Our leading passer today was Jameis Winston. He was 13 for 21, 169 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Jake Hader was 11 for 17, 118 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. I think Jake Hader won today. I'm really impressed with that young man. I'm not saying he's the second coming of Drew Brees, but I feel good. The future looks bright, and with a couple of more years under his belt, I think we have our quarterback for the future. If they, continue to work with him and nothing catastrophic happens to Derek Carr, I think we have a quality heir apparent here in the making. I know it's early, but he looks really good. He looks comfortable in his offense. He looks comfortable running this offense. I'm just very encouraged by him. The Saints rushing today. Our leading rusher today was Kendrick Miller. He had 10 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown. Darrell Williams had 8 carries for 17 yards. Ellis Merriweather had 5 carries for 15 yards. Jonte Kirkland, he had 1 carry for 8 yards. And Jack Hader, he had 2 carries for -2 yards today. Our leading receiver today was, of course, Shaq Davis, 3 catches for 63 yards. Lynn Bolden had 2 catches for 37 yards. Kendrick Miller had 3 catches for 36 yards. Lucas Kroll, 3 catches for 30 yards. Ellis Merriweather had 4 catches for 26 yards. A.T. Perry had 3 catches for 22 yards. Kurt Merritt had 1 catch for 8 yards. Darrell Williams had 1 catch for 4 yards. And Adam Patience had 1 catch for 2 yards. Going over the team stats, the New Orleans Saints had 13 first downs, 8 of them from passing, 4 by rushing, 1 by penalty. The Chargers had 19 first downs, 10 by passing, 6 by rushing, 3 by penalty. On third downs, the Saints were 5 for 17. The Chargers were 3 for 15. On fourth down, the Saints were a perfect 100%, converting their only attempt, whereas the Chargers went for it 5 times, converting twice. Total plays, Saints ran 66 plays to the Chargers 68. Total yardage, Saints had 339 yards to the Chargers 309. Total drives, Saints had 14 drives to the Chargers 13. Yards per play, Saints averaged 5.1 yards per play, Chargers 4.5 per play. Passing, Saints 278 yards of passing yards, and the Chargers 189. Rushing, Chargers 120 yards rushing to the Saints 61. In the red zone, Saints were 1 for 5, Chargers were 2 for 3. We need to get better in the red zone. Turnovers, Saints were able to get 3 turnovers today, 2 interceptions and 1 fumbled loss. Penalties, my God, Chargers had 5 penalties for 26 yards. The New Orleans Saints had 14 penalties for 141 yards. That is embarrassing. 14-5 in penalties. My God, that is horrible. That is horrible, people. Time of possession, Saints had the ball 34 minutes and 14 seconds. Chargers had the ball 25 minutes and 46 seconds. Touching in back on those penalties, a lot of them were on special teams, and that's a problem too. Special teams, they did not look crisp today. I'm talking about kick returns and kick coverage. They did not look too good. That was the one facet of our team that was consistently bad today. It wasn't horrible. They didn't give up, monster yardage in their kick return game, but with the penalties and the starting field position and things of that nature, it was bad. The kicking game was good. It had to be, or we would have lost. Both of our kickers looked good today, but it was just on the kick returns. It was ugly. Defense, when it comes to the penalties, ugly, bad penalties. We kept drives alive with these penalties. You get good stops. You get the Chargers in third and long situations, and boom, stupid penalty. Even on offense, that first drive in the second half, we get in the red zone. We had to settle for a field goal. Why? Penalties. We were in that possession. I think the Saints had about eight or 9 plays in that possession in the red zone, and because of penalties, and 2 of them took away touchdowns. That's unacceptable. There's no excuse for that. And trust me, they kept showing Dennis Allen, and he looked like he was about to just explode on the sideline. I feel sorry for these cats this upcoming week in practice. I'm pretty sure they're going to get the dog life. And rightfully so. I mean, they were unnecessary. They were at crucial points of the game, man. You can't make these stupid decisions. And everybody playing today are playing for their job. This is the ultimate job audition. And you cannot put this on tape. It's a bad look. It's a bad look. And it needs to clean up. I'm going to take it up once again. Dennis Allen's favorite expression. We need to clean up. We need to clean it up. So once again, man, we need to get this cleaned up. Definitely within the next 2 weeks before we start this regular season. Because 14 penalties, oh man, that's unheard of. It's unheard of. I know it's preseason, you're getting the kinks out and all this here, and I also fully acknowledge that in the preseason, referees going to call the game tighter. They do. This is every year. Is without fail. They do. But you look at the disparity between these two. The Saints 14, Chargers 5. Now, I would say they were kind of soft with the Chargers. I don't know. I don't want to cause a conspiracy theory here, but it just seemed kind of weird that it was that lopsided of a number. But nonetheless, I think uh, we got a good eye for some of these battles in these particular positions, defensive line, the cornerback battle, things of that nature. Oh, there was another. I skipped over it here on my notes. There was another young man I wanted to bring to the front of the congregation, Trevor Penning. Trevor Penning, um, you're the first round pick from last year. I saw you whiff on a couple of blocks, and he's at the most valuable position on that O line, left tackle. You cannot whiff. You whiff, and Jameis Winston is your starting quarterback. You whiff, and we're going through running backs like we changed socks. You cannot whiff at that position. I mean, whiff. It's one thing to get beat off the block. Okay, cool. I can live with that. Those guys get paid too. But and that's his bread and butter, run blocking. And it was on a running play that I was like, oh my God, the dude just ran right past him. And like, what are you doing? What are you looking at? I don't know. But yeah, he needs to get it together. And get it together quick. Because this is your second year. Uh I, I don't know. I don't know if this is natural position. Is he a guard by trade? I don't know. But he's not. I don't know. It's frustrating. He struck a nerve today. I was I was looking at. Oh my God, it just looked bad. It just looked bad. But look, as I said before, it's preseason. We still got time to clean up some of this stuff. But the part that worries me, some of the things that bothered me today are things that has nothing to do with scheme. It has nothing to do with learning a new offense or a defense or anything of that nature. These are basic fundamentals of football. The penalties, the holding, the blocking and a non-block. It's stuff like that. You should know at this level. And so that's the part that makes me scratch my head. So nonetheless, the Saints did win. So let's celebrate that. Saints came out victorious by the score of 22-17 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Did you enjoy the game? Did you watch it in its entirety? It was hard. It was hard. If you didn't watch it all, I understand. I get it. Because it was hard to watch that game. This was really boring. No starters, penalties. It was slow. It was dragging. It was a field goal kicking contest. Yeah. It was borderline boring. Really was. But hey, I would like to know, what did you think of the game, and are you excited moving forward? You can let me know by emailing the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also look up the show on all social media platforms. Just look up the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and give this video a like. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you are currently listening to the Dome Patrol podcast here on the KB Radio Network. Everyone, thank you for joining me as we looked back at week 2 of the Saints preseason as they defeated the Los Angeles Chargers once again, 22-17. Next week, the Saints will play the Houston Texans in our preseason finale. I'm pretty sure we're not going to see any starters again next week. But this will be the final audition for a lot of these players. So there is a reason to watch. So I will be watching it. At least I'm gonna try to hype it up as much as I can to watch it. But I will be speaking to you next week as we preview that game, and of course after that game we will have our recap just like we did today. So until then, I'm going to be screaming, who that?